Hey, little buddies, it's Uncle Rick from the Uncle Rick Audiobook Club, where you and I enjoy reading great books together. On today's podcast, I'll be reading a chapter or two from one of the exciting books in the club. I hope you enjoy it. Stick around at the end of the podcast, and I'll tell you how you can listen to the whole book, as well as tons of others that you are going to love.
A Visit with Uncle Rick, a podcast by Rick Boyer of Uncle Rick Audios.
Well, we are reading a book today about a period in history which I confess I have not thought much about or really looked into. This is about the early days of air travel, and I think specifically about airmail travel. In the days when airplanes were new and manned flight was new and still very dangerous at times. This is called Pilot Jack Knight by A.M. Anderson and R.E. Johnson. One of my newer old books. This one was published in 1950. Here's the intro. Wings. This is a story about the early days of flying and the pilots who gave wings to America. One of the best of these brave young men was Pilot Jack Knight. Like his flying pals, Jack Knight was always ready to do his part. No job was too hard for him, no danger too great. Proudly, he served his country. Proudly, he wore his wings. Now the first chapter called Sky Night. It was a hot summer day. The streets of the little town were quiet. No one was in sight but one small boy. He was swinging on the gate in front of his house. The boy was saying to himself, "They'll be coming this way soon. I wish they'd let me play with them in the woods. I know they're bigger than I am, but I can take care of myself. I can. All at once the boy jumped to the ground. He looked all around. Then he ran down the street and raced into the woods. Once safe in the woods, the boy looked back. No, they were not coming yet. He still had time. 10-year-old James Herbert Knight took a deep breath and smiled. Then he ran to the tallest tree in the woods. The tree was a great old oak with big, strong branches. It was almost 100 feet high. Jimmy looked up to the highest branches. He gave a long, low whistle. "Gee," he said, "it'll be hard to get way up there. But this is the only tree they can't climb, and so I'll have to do it. I just have to show 'em." Quickly the lad started to climb the tree. The bark cut into his hands and feet. Just as he reached the first branch, his foot slipped. The next second, he was lying on the ground. The boy lay still and looked the tree over with care. He did not mind the fall. He was used to them because he was always climbing trees. In fact, his father had said that he was almost a monkey. Jimmy picked himself up and tried again. 2 more times he fell to the ground, but at last he reached the first branch. The rest was easy. Up and up the boy climbed, up to the very top branch. "Gee, this is great," the boy told himself. "It's like being on top of the world." Jimmy looked out over the Michigan town where he lived. The name of the little town was Buchanan. Jimmy thought it was a pretty town. He liked the country, too. It was fun to visit his school friends who lived on farms. The boy laughed softly. "Most of all, I like high places," he said. I wish I could fly like a bird. If I could, I'd fly right up to the sky." Just then Jimmy heard voices. "Here they come," he said. "I'll surprise 'em." The sound of voices grew louder. Pretty soon Jimmy caught sight of 10 or more boys. The boys stopped under the great oak tree. Jimmy began to grin. "Woo!" he called. He was trying to sound like an owl. The boys stopped talking. Jimmy leaned over a little so he could see them better. The look on Ed Stover's face almost made him laugh out loud. "Woo-hoo!" Jimmy went again. A boy said, "Funniest sounding owl I ever heard." "Can't be an owl," said Ed Stover. He still had that funny look on his face. "Owls hoot only at night, I think." "Say," said another boy, "I didn't see Jimmy when we passed his house. Any of you fellas see him?" "No," said someone. "Maybe we should let Jimmy play with us," said Ed. "He's in our grade at school. Maybe he can take care of himself." Another boy said, "Jimmy's too little to play with us, and besides, Jimmy doesn't belong here. Dr. and Mrs. Knight are not his real father and mother. He's adopted." For a minute, Jimmy felt as though someone had hit him. Quick, hot tears filled his dark eyes and ran down his thin face. Sure, it was true, he was adopted, and that was wonderful. He loved Dr. and Mrs. Knight, and they loved him. They loved his sister Lucille, too. He knew they did. And Fred, their real son, was just like a big brother. Fred was wonderful. Jimmy brushed the tears from his face. "Who said I didn't belong here?" he cried out. "Who said that?" The boys looked at one another. They looked up into the tree. "Jimmy!" they cried. "Jimmy Knight!" Down the tree, Jimmy came as fast as he could swing from branch to branch. Then on the last branch he stopped to catch his breath. He asked again, "Who said I didn't belong here?" "Gee whiz, Jimmy, I did," a boy answered. "I was wrong. Any fellow who can climb this oak tree clear to the top is good." "That's right," said Ed Stover. "We've all tried to climb it, but none of you have," broke in Jimmy, "and that's why I did it. I had to show you that I can take care of myself." "You're all right, Jimmy," one of the boys said. "You mean I belong here?" Jimmy asked. Yes, you're one of us now." Jimmy began to grin. He jumped to the ground. Laughing and talking, the boys made a circle around him. "Say, you're some owl," a boy said. "Where'd you ever learn to hoot like that?" "Hoot Owl'd be a good name for you," another boy said. "No," spoke up Ed Stover. "I have a better name for Jimmy. He likes high places. Let's call him Sky." At once the boys took up the new name. "Sky," they shouted. "Sky Knight." Jimmy threw back his head and laughed. He knew the boys were not making fun of him. He knew he was one of them now. He belonged. Next chapter. One of the big boys. All afternoon the boys stayed in the woods. They had a good time. They ran races, played games, and climbed trees. At sunset, tired and happy, they marched back to town. When they came to the Knight house, Jimmy fell out of line. "So long, fellas," he said. "See you tomorrow." "Sure thing, Sky Knight," the boys answered. Jimmy watched the boys march on down the street. Then he turned and ran into the house. "Mom," he called. "Mom, where are you?" "Here, son," his mother answered. "Here in the kitchen." Jimmy raced into the kitchen. "Mom," he cried, "I've been playing with the big boys." "Yes, son," Mrs. Knight said. "I know." "Who told you?" Jimmy asked his mother. "I saw you run to the woods. I wanted to call you, but Fred would not let me." Mrs. Knight put the apple pie she had baked for supper on the table. She took the lad's face in her hands. She asked, "Did you get along all right?" "Yes, Mom, yes." Mrs. Knight smiled. "Fred said you would." "And you know what?" Jimmy went on. "The boys call me Sky. Isn't that a wonderful name?" "Sky? Why would they call you Sky?" Just then Dr. Knight came into the room. He said, "I can tell you why, Mother. Our young son is the best tree climber in Buchanan." Mrs. Knight's hands flew to her lips. "Oh, Jimmy," she whispered, "do be careful." While they were talking, Lucille and Fred came tearing into the house. The two children were very excited. The story about Jimmy and the tallest oak tree was all over town. "And everyone's calling you Sky," Lucille told her brother. "Everyone." Fred said, "Sky is a very good name for you." The best tree climber of all Buchanan said, "Fred, I need to thank you. You told Mother I could take care of myself. Thanks a lot." Fred laughed. "Forget it." "Oh, I couldn't do that. You're always sticking up for me." "Well, that's what big brothers should do." Jimmy smiled with delight. "Gee," he said, "this has been a wonderful day." And for Jimmy, all the days that followed were wonderful. It was great to be called Sky. It was fun to be one of the big boys. It was fun to go swimming and fishing with them. It was fun to play Indian or cowboy or baseball. Of all the boys, Sky liked Ed Stover best. And Ed must have felt the same way, for the two lads were always together. Almost before Sky knew it, the wonderful summer was gone. School started again. Now there was not as much time for play. Most of the big boys worked after school. Some earned money by working in the stores of the town. Others cut grass or washed windows. and some took newspapers to the homes of the people who wanted them. Ed was one of the boys who had a paper route, and so, of course, Sky wanted a paper route too. But Mrs. Knight said, "No, son, the bags of newspapers are too heavy for you to carry." "Oh, please, Mom," begged Sky. "Let Sky try it," spoke up Fred. "I'll look out for him." "You have your own job, Fred." "I know," Fred answered, "but I can help Sky when I get through." Mrs. Knight shook her head and laughed. She said, "All right, Sky, you may take the job." Sky's paper route was a very long one. The bag of newspapers was heavy, but at the end of each month he had earned $1, and he had earned it by himself. And you know, little buddies, this is something very important. Every chance you get to do some work and earn some honest money, you take that chance. Even if it's a hard, sweaty, boring job, you find ways to earn money, and then you use it in godly ways. You give some of it, you save some of it, and you spend some of it. And if you can find a way to invest some of it so that it earns you more money, that's even better. Just putting it in the bank might keep it safe for you, but it won't grow there, because the interest that banks pay to their depositors, that would be you if you have a bank account, is less than the rate of inflation. Inflation means how much prices are going up. So if you put $10 in the bank and you're earning, say, 4% interest, well, then you've earned 40 cents at the end of the year. But if the inflation rate is 6%, then you have actually lost buying power because everything costs more and your money didn't grow as much as the cost of things grew. So you need to look for investments where you can earn more than whatever the rate of inflation is. That's not really part of the book here, but I just thought I'd throw that in because looking back from my advanced years, that's one of the things I most wish I had done when I was a kid. And I'll tell you something else. I read about a research project that was done somewhere, and it found that of people who have become prominent, that is famous, that the one thing they all had in common, every one of these prominent people that was studied in the study, the one thing that they all had in common was that they worked for money when they were young. So, there are things to be learned about earning money and using money that you're really going to need to know when you get older. And besides that, if you earn money and invest it now, you will be amazed at how much it's grown in a few years. Wish I had done that when I was a kid. A few days before Christmas in 1903, there was great news in the newspaper. Not many people in the little town believed the news, but that did not matter to Sky. He believed it, every word of it. "I know it's true," the boy told a group of men. "I know it. The Wright brothers did fly an airplane. It happened at Kitty Hawk, North Carolina. I read all about it in the newspaper." The men laughed. "Sure," they said. "Sure." One man said, "The plane wasn't in the air a minute. You call that flying?" The boy nodded. "Yes, I do. No one has ever done it before. And so even that counts for something, doesn't it?" Just then another man joined the crowd on the street corner. He said, "It does, Sky, and I'll stick up for the Wright brothers and for you." The boy looked up into the man's kindly face. "Thanks, Dad," he said. "Thanks a lot." Dr. Knight placed an arm around his son's shoulders. He turned to the men. One said, "We were only having a little fun." "That's right," spoke up the others. They all laughed a little, then began to talk about something else. Soon the men parted. Some were cold from the wind and snow. They went into the stores to sit around the stoves. Some watched a man ride away in one of those new machines called an automobile. Yep, that's what you and I call cars, fellers and gals. And let's see, that's over 120 years ago, or about 120 years ago. So there were very few cars on the streets then. When my Uncle Pete was growing up down the Ozark Hills of Missouri, he said they drove herds of cows and sheep and hogs over those rough, rocky roads back there in the hills. And he said, "We never thought about meeting the car." Why not? because very few people had them. This would have been back in the 1920s and 30s that he was talking about. So although there were lots of cars in the cities by then, there were very few out in the country, at least out where my people lived. Sky and his father started down the street toward the family house. As they walked along, Sky made snowballs and threw them high into the air. "Sky," his father said, "I haven't seen Ed Stover for a few days. How is he?" "Oh, Ed's fine," Sky answered. "Mrs. Stover came to my office this morning." "Mrs. Stover, is she sick?" "No," the doctor answered. "Then why did she come to see you?" "She wanted to talk to me." Sky looked at his father. The boy asked, "Did she tell you about the airplane?" The doctor nodded. "Yes. And now, son, let's hear your side of the story." "Well," the boy began, "it's like this, Dad. Ed and I like airplanes more than anything. Of course, we've never seen one, but we had some pictures, and so we tried to make one out of some old boxes." Sky patted the snowball in his hands. "We had a box in our barn," he said in a low voice, "and we tried to fly. And that was when Ed hurt his arm." "Yes, Dad, I helped Ed get home that day. Mrs. Stover cried, so I told her it was all my idea." "Was it?" "Well, no, but I thought if I said so it'd help Ed." Dr. Knight reached down and picked up some snow. He rolled it into a round ball. He said, "See that tree across the street? If you hit it before I do, I'll buy you a book about flying." For a minute, Sky just looked at his father. Then he began to grin. "Gee, Dad," he said, "you're wonderful." Thanks for listening to A Visit with Uncle Rick today, little buddies. That's all we have time for right now. But remember, the whole book is available on the Uncle Rick Audio Book Club at unclerickaudios.com. Why not ask Mom and Dad about joining my club today?